because I peg the throttle, an impeccable model of everything you've ever seen in your worst dreams and horrible nightmares at home in the night air. And yo, I'ma warn you one time, I don't fight fair.
What's up, my wizards? Dev, SBMTG, down there. We do magic decks on YouTube.com. Today, we've got something that people are really stoked on, and that is red-green wolves, or just simply werewolves, whatever you want to call it. People have been, like, really asking for this, and I don't blame them. Wolves are awesome. Wolves are super cool, and this deck has a special place in my heart, because for the, 10 years of adult life before my dad had me, his nickname was Wolf. Everybody called him Wolf. That's super awesome. So this one's for you, Pops. And we'll make this one a double deck tech because that's what you guys like. And there are definitely multiple ways of building this thing. You can build it cheap, you can build it expensive. And both versions, pretty fun, pretty good, and operate in similar manners too. So let's go ahead and launch into the budget one here. 26 creatures in the budget deck, starting with 4 copies of Village Messenger / Moonrise Intruder. You're building a wolf deck, you want it to be aggro, this is the one drop that you want right here. The haste is actually really good on this, let me just throw that out there. Not a bad throw-in ability, haste. Makes it feel like a Swift Spear, but it's not. Sadly, it's not a Monastery Swift Spear, but when it does flip, it's a 2-power menace, which is good, especially if you can play this on the play first turn. A lot of the times, they won't play a spell on their first turn. You can flip this at the beginning of your upkeep and start bashing in for 2. Although, it won't be long until somebody plays 2 spells in one turn. Hello, Igby. I just couldn't see not including Messenger, you know? We want to do a lot of aggro stuff in the deck. We need the 1 drop, and he's perfect. We've got a few options at the 2-drop slot. What did I end up playing in the budget deck? It may surprise you. Well, we're playing 4 copies of Duskwatch Recruiter / Krallenhorde Howler here. I really actually like this card a lot. I mean, it's a standard 2-mana 2/2. That's not bad on its own. But this gives you a way of doing something on turn 3 or in later turns even, and not casting a spell, allowing you to flip your werewolves at the beginning of your opponent's upkeep. So that's important. Onboard effects are pretty important, and this is one of the best ones that we can play. It's card advantage. That's pretty darn good. Amazing card advantage onboard effect that allows us to flip our guys. I mean, I'm all in for Duskwatch Recruiter. The card is good. And when he transforms, he gets a little bit bigger, and he allows you to play more wolves for less. That's pretty awesome right there. There's a really cool turn sequence where it's like turn 1 Messenger, turn 2 this, turn 3, activate his onboard ability and flip over your guys. That's a cool turn sequence right there. Recruiter has been good for lots of different reasons, and I really wouldn't go without this card. Turns out it's very good. We're playing 4 copies of Scourge Wolf in the deck because I think we have to, Even if we don't activate the Delirium on it, it's still a wolf that costs 2 mana, it's a 2/2, that's fair, and it has first strike, which is good, especially considering we have, buffs in the deck, we have combat tricks in the deck, so first strike can be really important. And if you can Delirium, it's totally possible. We have 4 sorceries, 4 instants, we have Evolving Wilds in the deck specifically because of this card, and to fix our mana, and other reasons. I'll get to more reasons to play Evolving Wilds when we get to the lands. But, and we have creatures, obviously, so we have ways of activating the Delirium, and we can do that as a surprise, by the way, If we have everything except for an instant in the graveyard, if we're 1 instant away from activating Delirium, then if this goes unblocked, we can cast, say, a Titan Strength on it and give it the double strike before the damage goes through. So that can actually be huge, allowing it to get through for 10 damage if it goes unblocked, and your opponent is sort of asleep and doesn't see that all you need is an instant to activate Delirium, which does happen, it turns out. People are going to be asleep on a couple of these things, on a Delirium especially, if they're not keeping track of your graveyard. So keep that in mind. But Scourge Wolf, I think, is just fine even if we don't have Delirium activated. It's just probably one of the better 2-drops we can play, so I'm going to play it. I have 1 more slot in the budget deck at 2-drop. What do we do? There's a couple of other options, but I'm going to pick an older card that may actually surprise you. I'm going to play a whole play set, because we sort of have to if we play the card at all, of Timberpack Wolves. Yeah, I'm totally going to do it. We've got a lot of buffs in the deck, so even with just 2 wolves out, Timberpack Wolves, then this thing can be, a 3/3 plus the buffs. It can be a 4/4, 5/5 even, So I really like Wolves, and it goes pretty well with Duskwatch Recruiter, by the way. With its onboard ability, you can sort of, dig for more Timberpack Wolves if that's what you're trying to do. Wolves, I've seen this thing get as big as a 4/4 with a couple of other wolves out, plus buffs making them pretty darn big at the end of the day. So Timberpack Wolves, pretty good 2-drop, and I play it over Pacifist, and I play it over the other thing, the red thing. I actually think this is not a bad 2-drop at all, to be honest with you. It's a good card. But I want to point this out before I move on real quick. As far as 2-drops go, I actually think that you could play something like McKindy Slide Runner or Snapping Gnarlid in this deck and be fine with that too. I mean, the green-red aggro deck, if there is one, is probably not going to be strictly Wolves. You know, it's going to play Zurgo in it very likely, Atarka's Command, which is going to be in the competitive version of this deck. But it probably wouldn't be strictly Wolves. You know, we're playing other great red and green cards that are aggro-oriented and aren't necessarily Wolves. So you could play McKindy Slide Runner in this instead, and the main reason to play it is because this is a way to only play a land on one of your turns and still get some value. You know, the landfall creatures go kind of well with the transform mechanic because we can not play any spells and still do something on our turn, making our creatures bigger. So that's a consideration. In the budget deck, we'll play 4 copies of Silverfur Partisan, and in the competitive deck, because this guy is the daddy. Like, this guy is really good. So much revolves around this guy. When you have one of him in play, the whole world changes, and your opponent has to worry more about targeting your guys because you're just going to replace them. You know, I love the fact that this works with token wolves. You know, tokens that it creates. It works with. That's pretty awesome. You know, if they try to target a token, you get a token. If they target Partisan himself, you get a token. That's awesome. I don't like Silk Wrap though, because they can Silk Wrap Partisan and you won't get a token, and your Partisan's gone. So you have to look out for Silk Wrap. Although we are running Natural Stake Board to deal with that, and Virulent Plague, specifically because of this card. Partisan's just been super awesome. I mean, I can't really tell you how great this card is on turn 3, and by turn 5 or 6, you can really start getting things going. We're playing Titan Strength in the deck, and just, you know, targeting one of your wolves with a Titan Strength gets you another wolf and a big wolf that you just hit with Titan Strength, you get to scry, you know? So, just having, you know, combat tricks in the deck is good enough, but if they target your wolves with removal, you get another wolf, which can be something like, they don't even want to play removal at that point, and even if they do manage to get rid of Partisan, you still get a wolf. Like, it's just mad crazy. Hey, Ziggy, jeez. It's insane how many wolves you get out of this guy, is all I'm saying. Love Silverfur Partisan, and he is one of the, you know, top 3 key pieces in the deck. See what you did, Ziggy. And now they're both gone, of course. 4 copies of Breakneck Rider / Neckbreaker, great name pun. And it's sad that the horse dies. That's really sad. But talking about the actual functionality of the card. It's an Anthem effect that provides another ability, in this case, Trample, which is really, really good in a board stall, which this deck is good getting out of board stalls. You know, Silverfur Partisan helps us go wide, and then this makes the creatures we've gone wide with a little bit bigger and able to punch through for some extra damage. So just the fact that it's an Anthem effect, absolutely automatic playset. Let's play that. And to finish off the creatures, 2 copies of Greier, Reach Bandit, we'll call it Greier, maybe Greier, Reach Bandit / Vildin-Pack Alpha. Just a couple of weird names on this thing. But, you know, obviously, good card in that any spells or any creatures that we play that can transform, we can just choose to transform them. Which we're not playing, if you'll notice. Things like Timberpack Wolves, Scourge Wolf, Silverfur Partisan, all of those don't transform. And I'm trying to play as many creatures there in this deck as we can that don't transform, that we don't have to worry about, okay, how many spells we play this turn? We can't even play a spell if we want to transform these guys. And they can just play 2 spells and transform our guys and make them weak. And like, we don't have to worry about that with like 12 of our guys, which is another reason, by the way, to play Timberpack Wolves. But Greier Reach Bandit, you know, we can play things transformed if we have him transformed. That's not bad at all. Not only that, he gets a little bit bigger, you know, and his just regular creature, you know, human version has haste. That's actually not terrible either, you know. This can come down late in the game and deal 3 surprise damage. And if we have a Titan Strength, it gets even better. So I love surprise damage. Let's play a couple of copies of these. But I don't think it's that important to have our creatures come to play transformed. It's pretty important, don't get me wrong. But again, we're playing as few of those as we can possibly get away with. So this card loses a little bit of prevalence. And we're running so many 3-drops in the deck that I had to cut a couple of them, and I think this is the weakest 3-drop we play. In the spells, we're playing 4 enchantments in the deck. All 4 of them are Howlpack Resurgence, because we absolutely have to. This functions as a combat trick, which can be super awesome. By the way, it's even better than people are grading it on. People, that's good in limited that it's a combat trick. No, it's good in standard that it's a combat trick. Trust me. Also, this can be used to counter Languish. On any guys that we have that are, you know, 4 toughness. Just a way to beat Languish, which the deck really needs, because we die to Languish. Like, we die pretty hard to Languish. It's our biggest problem in the entire format. So we need a way. And this is at least worth mentioning. But again, Anthem effect, gotta play it for that reason alone. And this one can be used as a combat trick, making it even better. And to finish off the spells, 4 copies of Avacyn's Judgement, because I want to play a sorcery for Scourge Wolf. And I think this is a good one because it can not only take out early creatures, including Jace, which is pretty important, but it can also, you know, kill 2 small creatures at once. It can kill a small guy and hit them for a damage. And in a piece of super secret tech I've already talked about, you can target 2 of your wolves with this. If you have a Silverfur Partisan out, you get 2 more wolves, and the wolves you targeted don't die. 22 lands in the deck, here they are. I mean, Looming Spires is yet another way, especially, you know, later in the game, turn 4, turn 5, to do something without doing anything. You know, we can make a creature a little bit bigger and give it first strike, swing in with it, not play anything else, and then transform our dudes at the beginning of their next upkeep. That can actually be pretty important, and as I've said, Evolving Wilds is also good for that reason too, by the way. We can play a land, fix our mana, and get a land in the graveyard for Scourge Wolf. And that feels like we've accomplished something at that point. But we haven't done anything, and we get to transform our guys if that's what we want to do. So, actually, we get to transform our guys regardless. Ziggy came back, hey. So that's another reason to play Evolving Wilds. There are going to be whole turns where we don't want to do anything because we want to transform our guys. We can use those turns to pop Evolving Wilds. This cat is freaking adorable. Here's our sideboard right here, and every single card is pretty important, especially Natural State, which kills Silk Wraps and Virulent Plagues, like I've already said. 2 cards we really worry about. Fiery Impulse against these small aggro decks in the format, that's, I feel like, a pretty important card. Display of Dominance probably gets a little bit more important when the format shuffles here. I think it's a good card too. Moonlight Hunt, I like against bigger creatures. I actually like Moonlight Hunt a lot, and it could almost make the main deck, but I don't think just quite. And then 2 copies of Zada Hedron Grinder, because that's what everyone wants to do. This could be in the main deck, don't get me wrong, but it gets removed a lot. Like, it gets removed an awful lot when I tried to put it in the main deck as a 2-of. It's just they really don't want this to happen, and they will do everything in their power to stop it from happening. Although you could play Zada on the 5th turn alongside a Titan Strength, and that is a good play. Don't get me wrong. But Zada, I think, I'm going to restrict it to the sideboard against decks with far less removal. Before I move on to the competitive deck, I want to talk for just a second about some cards I didn't play. And I'm going to make this fairly quick, but I did not play Neglected Heirloom, and I could see this being a pretty good turn 1 play. You know, turn 1 you play this, turn 2 a 2-drop that can transform, and then turn 3 you equip the Heirloom and transform your guys. You don't do anything besides equip the Heirloom and transform your dudes. So I could see that being pretty good, and if they somehow manage to kill this, you know, your opponent, then it's another thing in the graveyard for Scourge Wolf. So there's that too. But at the end of the day, I just didn't see the room for it. I didn't play Wolf of Devil's Breach because I wanted to be a more dedicated aggro deck and not play a 5-drop. You know, I want to play combat tricks and stuff like that, and I want to stop basically at 3 in this deck, 3 mana by Ziggy. So I just feel like a 5-drop is pretty heavy, and although we are playing Avacyn's Judgement, that'll be a thing to madness by discarding a card. There's a lot I don't like about this card. By the time we hit turn 5, 6, really, because we have to play this, and then next turn activate it. By the time we hit turn 6, we just don't have that many cards in our hand, you know? So, Devil's Breach just didn't work, theoretically at least, the way I wanted it to. And the way a lot of players will want it to, you know? It's a decent finishing piece, yes, but it's a little incongruous, is all I'm saying. Here are your power rankings for the budget deck here. A final score of 56. Our resiliency suffers a lot, and that brings down other categories. There are some issues with the deck, and the deck does present some pretty unique challenges in the building process. Mostly Scourge Wolf and the whole, you know, if you play a thing, you don't get to transform your guys. If they play 2 things, they get to untransform your guys. That really lets them dictate the pace of the game sometimes, and that can be a real problem. We don't want that. Although there are definitely times where they'll run out of gas or they'll not be able to play, you know, anything on their turn, and on turn 4 or 5, we will just transform and be able to just run in, you know. So it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it works out in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on what kind of deck you're playing. But when your dudes finally do transform, that's awesome. Problem is, they're going to languish you before that. A Radiant Flames, Planar Outburst, whatever they're playing. We are very susceptible to mass removal, and that hurts quite a bit. Although we do have some resiliency plays. Silverfur Partisan is pretty good after following up mass removal. It sucks when it's on the board and you get, you know, swept. But after mass removal, this is a pretty good resiliency play. Not only that, but after they sweep you, a lot of times they're running low on options. So if you are able to play a couple of more guys out of your hand that can transform, you'll often be able to get them to transform fairly quickly. So there are some resiliency plays in the deck, but not a lot. All I'm saying is Languish sucks. That said, the deck can pull off some fairly quick wins, and even though it can operate quickly, it also operates pretty well in board stalls. Any other deck that's trying to build a fairly good board presence, we do pretty well against, because they're going to leave our guys alone for the most part, and we win most wars of attrition because of Silverfur Partisan. And our buffs, you know. We've got a couple of different ways of breaking stalemates, and the deck is pretty good at that. Which makes sense as far as the flavor of Wolves, you know, just the pack gets bigger and bigger and bigger and starts overwhelming, you know. So in long game situations, the deck is good and can actually be fairly fast too. That said, last thing I'll say about this deck, it is a house of cards, man. You know, if they can start dictating the pace of the game and when you get to have transform guys and when you don't, that can be a serious issue. And it's basically the biggest stumbling block of the deck is that they get to have too much say in what happens. But still pretty fun deck, and against decks that are sort of low on interaction, this can be really, really powerful. Overall, the deck's only going to cost you about 30 bucks to build. Not bad, and a lot of these prices will probably go down. That's the secret that everyone knows about pre-order prices, is that these cards still aren't out yet, and the hype is pretty real at this point. Especially for Werewolves. So after a couple of months, people will start opening packs, supply will get better, and the hype will die down. And a lot of these cards will die down in price as well. So the deck may go down to as low as, you know, $15, $20 by the time the dust settles. That's all for the budget deck. Time to move into the competitive deck here. The competitive deck does gain quite a few points just because of the inclusion of a couple of cards here. And we are playing a fairly similar deck. As a matter of fact, 22 creatures in this deck, a difference of only 4, and that difference is the Timberpack Wolves. We're not playing Timberpack Wolves in this deck, but every single other creature is the same. 4 copies of Village Messenger, because we need the 1-drop. 4 copies of Recruiter, because he's got an amazing onboard ability that is card advantage. That's just too good to pass up. 4 copies of Scourge Wolf, because we have even more ways in this deck of activating that, because we're playing a Planeswalker, so his Delirium can come online even more easily in this deck. And people gun for Arlen Cord, so, you know, she'll be in the graveyard pretty quickly a lot of the time. We're playing 4 copies of Silverfur Partisan as well, because even though Arlen Cord is in this deck and she's the mama, this guy's still the daddy, and we need Partisan. A lot of our game plan revolves around him. We're playing 4 copies of Breakneck Rider still, because Breakneck Rider is an Anthem effect that also helps break stalls, so yes, that. And we're playing the 2 copies of Greier Reach Bandit, because haste and the transforming guys. Hey, we're playing 4 Planeswalkers in the deck. I was just talking about this lady. 4 copies of Arlen Cord, and she's pretty much as good as everyone wants her to be. You know, I just said that about Soren the other day. Arlen Cord, though, can just take over the game absolutely all by herself. Card is really, really good and can make our small dudes bigger. That's actually, that first ability is better than you think it is. I can guarantee you that. The second ability, Making Wolves, is great. Redundant thing with Silverfur Partisan, and with Arlen Cord out and a Partisan too, we can just go extremely wide. And once we do flip her, she gives us another removal option or a way to deal damage to the face. She gives us another Atarka's Command, giving us all of our creatures +1/+1, and another ability. That's really good. And of course, her ultimate's awesome too, but you're not going to ultimate Arlen too much. Just her first 4 abilities, if you want to put it that way, the 2 abilities on the untransformed card and the first 2 on the transform card are just all super dope and really relevant in almost any game situation. So Arlen Cord has been just exactly what this deck needs at the top of the curve. Does everything. Takes out creatures, hits the face, makes more creatures, makes our dudes big, buffs all of our guys. Just Arlen Cord is insane. It's like 5 spells in one. Into the spells here, we're playing 11 of them, starting with 3 copies of Titan Strength. I took it down just by 1 because we're also playing Atarka's Command in the deck, so I felt like it was okay to dip this down by 1. Ziggy, all right down there? He's okay. He's just loving this. But Titan Strength, I feel like, is probably one of the most cuttable cards in the deck, as long as we're only cutting the 1 copy, so I did exactly that. 4 copies of Atarka's Command in the deck. If you have the dollars to play it, you definitely play this freaking thing. Another way to deal damage to the face, which the deck now has a total of like 8 ways of doing in this version of it. So it's like a burn deck with a bunch of creatures, and you can go wide with tokens. It's pretty good, right? But just another way of dealing direct damage with this card. That's pretty awesome. Also, if you want the land drop, you can have it, you know, but mostly we want to deal 3 to the face and buff all of our guys. And I'm still playing 4 copies of Avacyn's Judgement. I just think it's that important to take out early guys, bust 2 dudes, sometimes hit them in the face, take out Jace. You know, it's just, the card is, I'm telling you, the card is good. And that trick is not to be, you know, discounted. Being able to hit 2 of your guys and get 2 wolves if you have a partisan out is actually pretty awesome. There's really not much in the format that they're like, okay, deal 1 to that guy now. Like, it's really, they're not going to do that. It's not going to happen. And here are the lands in the deck. Being able to add Cinderglade and Game Trail are both, that's really, really good. I mean, if you have the money in the budget deck, add these. And I would suggest going ahead and getting these. You know, these cards just work so well in conjunction. They still allow us to build 3 colors if that's what we desire. I just love the way these cards work together. Battle lands, and I guess we're calling them hand lands for the time being. So, yeah, and Evolving Wilds is still in there because Scourge Wolf. And again, we have whole turns where we don't want to do anything. So we can just pop an Evolving Wilds. And here's the sideboard. You'll note that it's the exact same sideboard as the budget deck. I think we can get away with that because the budget deck sideboard really handles a lot of the problems that we have. Other than Languish, I just really don't know what to do about mass removal. We could play Inspiring Call or something, but I'm really just mostly worried about Languish. That's the thing people are playing, so, and that doesn't help against Languish. So I'm not totally sure what to do. And here are the power rankings in the deck. A final score of 65. That's right. Mostly Arlen Cord and Atarka's Command will bring it up 9 whole points. That's because our offense increases fairly dramatically. It's just a 1 point difference, but that's like, you know, the difference between really a 7.1 and like an 8.4. You know, it's like a huge, big difference there. So there's that. And Arlen Cord just helps with our resiliency a lot. Following up a Languish with an Arlen Cord it's like it never happened. You know, it's really awesome. So Arlen, it really helps out the deck by a lot, and obviously increases the power level of the deck by a lot too. So that giant boost in the score is very well deserved. That's all I've got for now. What are we doing next time? Well, I put out my top 10 upcoming decks video. Check that out if you haven't seen it yet. And what everyone seems to be the most excited by is probably blue-black zombies and Jund. Those are the 2 things people really want to see. People also like the idea of humans, so I'll probably be working on that. But I'm already working on Jund. I've been working on that for a while. So I'm probably going to bring that to you next. I feel like blue-black zombies is going to be a really synergistic deck that works together a lot. So a lot of moving parts. I want to spend some time on that one. Though Jund, I've been working on for a while, and it's more or less a good stuff deck, so it's almost ready for you. If you enjoyed the content, just do me a solid. Like, share, comment, do all the things. You know, subscribe if you're new, or if you just have been watching me forever and you haven't subbed yet. That would mean a lot to me if you did it. Please. Begging. Anyway, I'll see you next time. I'm Dev from SBMTG. This is Ziggy, the cutest cat on the internet. I will stake my claim. Cutest cat on the internet there's a million cats on the internet. But you are the one, man. You don't even care. That's the best part about it is you don't care. You're just so chill. But yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, my wizards.